Tonight, we drift not into a land of dreams, but into a waking nightmare. The year is 480 BC. The wind over the Eurotas River howls like a wounded wolf. And in the shadow of Mount Taygetus, the Spartan state prepares its young to forget what softness feels like. You think you know hardship. You've had long nights, cold showers. Maybe you skipped breakfast and told your friends you were suffering. But here, in ancient Sparta, there is no comfort. There is no tired. There is only one question. Are you strong enough to survive the day? And for most, the answer is no. You awaken not to the warmth of sunlight, but to discipline, cold, absolute, and merciless. In ancient Sparta, there are no gentle mornings, no birdsong, no tender mother's touch, no lingering dreams. Only the rasp of iron, the thud of marching feet, and the bark of a trainer's voice slicing through the dust. Heavy Peloponnesian air. You are 7 years old, and from this moment forward, you belong not to your family, but to the state. This is the agoge. It is not school. It is not childhood. It is a crucible, a place where boys are not raised, but melted down and reforged, hammered into weapons fit for only one purpose: war. Your name no longer matters, nor do your fears, your joys, your innocence. All that remains is obedience. You are stripped of softness. No blankets, no pillows. You sleep on bundles of reeds, barely woven. The chill of the stone floor seeps into your bones at night, as your body curls against the cold. If your fingers go numb, you do not complain. If your belly aches with hunger, you endure it in silence. The weak whimper, the strong do not. You are allowed one garment, rough spun and sleeveless, worn until it rots. You are barefoot, always. The ground cuts your soles, the stones bite your feet. But shoes are for cowards, for Athenians, for those who dream of luxury. Here, pain is not the enemy. Comfort is. Your first lesson endure without complaint. Your second obey without hesitation. Your third suffer without breaking. You are beaten, not in cruelty, but in ritual. The rods strike your back for mistakes, or for speaking out of turn, or for hesitating. The reason doesn't matter. What matters is how you take it. If you cry, you are mocked. If you scream, punished again. You learn quickly that tears are dangerous. Emotion is weakness, and weakness is a death sentence. Socially, spiritually, physically. The boy beside you shivered one night. The cold got into him. He coughed during inspection. The next morning, he was gone. No burial, no mention, just absence. You don't ask what happened. You run faster. Food is scarce. Hunger is constant. You're given a small ration, barley, sometimes cheese. It is not enough. It is never enough. But if you are clever, if you are bold, you can steal bread from the kitchens, fruit from the orchards, meat from the supply carts. And if you succeed, you eat. But if you are caught, you are punished, not for stealing, but for failing to be clever enough. Because in Sparta, cunning is a virtue. The knife hidden in the dark is worth more than a sword on the field. You are not just a soldier in training. You are a predator. The state is not just testing your strength. It is cultivating your ruthlessness. You train, not with games or drills, but with violence, wrestling, boxing, weapon forms. You are pitted against the other boys, and there are no rules. The instructors stand back, arms crossed. If someone bleeds, they nod in approval. If someone breaks a finger, they say it builds character. If someone fails to rise after being knocked down, they are left behind. You quickly learn that the real enemy is not the boy in front of you, but the boy inside you. The one who remembers his mother's lullabies, the one who fears the pain, the one who longs to be held. You kill that boy. You must. But even that is not the true test. The real test begins when you are 12. When your limbs are long and your mind has hardened. When your knuckles are calloused and your heart has grown quiet. This is when the krypteia begins. You are taken aside. Given no ceremony, no farewell, just a dagger and an order. Kill, not in war, not in honor. You are told to find a helot, a slave of the state, one of the conquered who toil beneath Spartan boots, and end their life in the dead of night. You must do it silently, without being caught, without remorse. It is not about hatred. It is not about crime. It is about obedience. It is about control. It is about shaping you into a blade with no conscience, only edge. You stalk your prey. A man who perhaps once had a family, a name, a dream, now reduced to a trial. And when you plunge the blade into his back, you do not weep. You do not tremble. You simply wipe the blood from the hilt and vanish into the darkness. Because in Sparta, death is not sacred. It is expected. By the time you are 15, your innocence is gone. By 20, your humanity is worn thin. You are a ghost in armor. You sleep with one eye open. You march without complaint. Your muscles ache. Your knuckles split. Your skin thickened by sun and scars. You have seen boys die. You have killed without question. You have become what the agoge was designed to produce, a tool of war. You live in communal barracks still. You eat black broth, pig's blood, vinegar, salt. A meal designed not for taste, but for survival. And even then, you thank the state for feeding you. You are not free. You are not a man. You are owned by Sparta. At 30, your shackles change shape. You are granted citizenship, spartiates. Not and only now may you live with your wife. Yes, your wife, though you were married at 18 in a bizarre ritual of shadows and silence. You saw her only in stolen nights, hidden from the eyes of your commanders. Love was forbidden, intimacy discouraged. Now, after a decade of duty, you are allowed to hold her in daylight. But even love is regulated. Even fatherhood comes with sacrifice. If you sire a son, he will be taken from you at 7, just as you were taken. If he is frail, misshapen, weak, he will be cast out. At the base of Mount Taygetus lies a field of stones. The unworthy are brought there. Newborns judged not by soul, but by symmetry. A crooked limb, a shriveled chest, a flaw of any kind, and the child is left to the wolves, to the wind, to fate. You do not cry. You do not protest. You simply nod and return to training. At 35, you ache. Your knees are brittle. Your spine stiff. The wars never end. Athens, Thebes, Persia, some nameless uprising in the mountains. You've killed dozens, maybe more. Men whose faces blur together, whose final gasps echo in your dreams. You sleep little. You eat less. You train always. There are no medals, no praise, no stories sung of your deeds. Only duty, only war. You pass younger boys in the barracks now, eager, proud, full of fire. You remember when you were like them. Before the blood, before the silence, before the emptiness. You do not envy them. You pity them, because now you understand the final truth. Sparta did not train you to live. It trained you to endure. You were never taught joy. You were never taught compassion. You were taught to suffer without breaking, to kill without question, to march without rest, to bury your brothers and keep moving. You are not a man. You are a weapon. And one day, when your body can no longer serve, when your grip weakens and your steps falter, Sparta will forget you. You will not be honored. You will not be remembered, because Sparta remembers only the strong, and even they are eventually dust. So why wouldn't you last a day in ancient Sparta? Because you have known comfort, you have known warmth, laughter, choice. love without consequence, sleep without fear. Spartans knew none of these. You wouldn't last because pain is a warning to you. To them, it was a guide. You wouldn't last because you expect justice. They worshipped obedience. You wouldn't last because you are human. They were steel wrapped in flesh. In Sparta, there is no room for softness. Only silence. Only strength. Only the state. And if you cannot become the blade, they will cast you into the fire. Because in Sparta, only the forged survive. The sun barely crests the jagged hills of Laconia when the boy is shaken awake. He does not stir in a bed. He lies in straw, damp with morning frost, shoulder to shoulder with others just like him. Others who've learned not to dream. There are no soft linens, no mother to greet him with warmth. Only the barked command of an older boy, his senior by 2 winters, who wastes no time reminding him where he is, and more importantly, what he is not. This is not childhood. This is Sparta. The agoge has no patience for softness. Here, gentleness is not forgotten. It is forbidden. The moment the boy's eyes open, the forge resumes. He is not a student. He is raw iron. And today, like every day, he must be hammered. He stands barefoot on frozen stone. He does not flinch. His feet have already split and calloused. Pain is just another part of the uniform. Breakfast is a handful of black bread, if he's lucky. He chews it slow, not for taste, but to keep it from ending. Hunger is constant. Hunger is training. He has not seen his mother in months. He's been taught not to speak her name. Family is a concept stripped from him like old flesh. His loyalty must flow upward, to Sparta, to the elders, to the phalanx. Nothing else. Today, he has already bled before the shadows stretch long. 5 lashes for being late to drill, not because he was lazy, but because he limped. The ankle sprained in yesterday's sparring was no excuse. There are no excuses in Sparta, only outcomes. He accepts the lashes in silence. Crying would earn 10 more. A stranger might call this cruelty. The Spartans call it refinement. They are sculptors of flesh and fire. They do not shape boys with kindness, but with deprivation. Where other cities mold thinkers, traders, and poets, Sparta forges weapons, and like any weapon, he must be sharpened. At 12, his limbs are lean and wary. His body has begun to resemble a wolf's, thin, fast, dangerous. He does not smile. His lips know only the tightness of silence. When he steals, no one knows. When he fights, he draws blood. When he speaks, his voice lands like a thrown spear, quick and final. The elders watch him now, not with affection, but with interest. He is no longer just another boy in the line. He is a blade nearing its final edge. His knuckles have scars from 10 winters. His eyes do not dart, they aim. When a helot speaks too freely near the granary, the boy hears it. A spark of defiance. A flicker of pride. That night, when the barracks quiet, he slips away. His breath is slow. His dagger is sharp. He walks the frost, covered paths like a ghost with purpose. He finds the helot's hovel. He watches. He waits. And when the time comes, he enters. There is no ceremony, just silence, and then blood. He does not report the kill. He is not expected to. This is the cryptia, a hidden rite of passage whispered only in firelit corners, a trial of death. The state gives no official sanction, but all know, all approve. A helot too bold? A lesson must be given, not to the slave, but to the boy. The lesson is simple to lead men. You must first kill without question. He returns to his cot. The blood on his hands does not bother him. The others do not ask. One of them will do the same soon enough. In the agoge, silence is solidarity. The cryptio is not war. It is not even vengeance. It is doctrine. The helots are many. Spartans are few, Fear is the chain that binds the balance, and Sparta is always watching. The years pass not like seasons, but like drills, repeated, relentless, measured only in scars. At 15, the boy is chosen to lead a younger one. It is an honor, but not a reward. He is expected to teach as he was taught. Through hunger, through pain, through the removal of comfort like a surgeon removing rot. If the boy under his command falters, he pays the price. Discipline in Sparta is not hierarchical. It is circular. It flows from peer to peer like sharpened wind. Everyone is accountable. Everyone bleeds. By 16, he can throw a javelin across a field and strike a boar between the eyes. Not because he's a hunter, but because the penalty for missing is starvation. He fights daily, with and without armor, not for sport, but to ensure he never forgets what breaking ribs feel like, his or someone else's. There is no rest, not even in dreams. He wakes with clenched fists, sleeps with one eye open. Trust is a concept reserved for brothers, and even then, only on the battlefield. At 17, he begins the ephobia, the final shaping of the blade. No more barracks. No more basic drills. This is field work. Harsh, wild, unsupervised. He is given a red cloak, not for warmth, but to hide bloodstains. His sandals are worn through. His rations are sparse. He marches through the Parnan Mountains with a unit of other young warriors. They sleep in mud. They bathe in snow. They train in silence. They are hunted by instructors, men who lurk in the woods, seeking to ambush and test them. Sometimes they succeed. When they do, punishment follows, not with lash, but with hunger, cold, isolation, a broken rib, a week without food. The boy, now a man in form, if not yet in title, learns the last lesson of the agoge: to fight without needing to win, to endure even when the cause is lost, to embody the phalanx alone. He returns at 18 and is formally recognized, but not yet free. Not in the way you understand freedom. In Sparta, you serve until death or disgrace. He is allowed to marry. A ceremony is held, brief, wordless. The girl is chosen by his family. He may see her, sometimes, but he may not live with her. His body still belongs to the state. His meals are eaten in the syssitia, the mess halls. His nights are spent in the barracks. His wife is a secret, a shadow he sees only when duty permits. She becomes a dream he does not have time to dream. By 20, he is considered a homoios, an equal, one of Sparta's elite, but he is still watched, still weighed. His service is not over. It has only changed shape. He may now fight in war, but the real war began long ago. You, dear viewer, would not last a day in this. Not because you are weak, but because you believe in choice. You believe in comfort as a right. You think pain is failure, not function. You would ask questions. Spartans ask none. You would seek warmth. Spartans destroy it. You would yearn for love. Spartans permit only loyalty. You could survive hunger, perhaps. A whipping. Even war. But could you survive becoming someone else? Could you strip away everything that makes you feel alive, just to serve a name, a city, a flag? Could you forget your name? Because that's what the agoge demands. Not obedience. Obliteration. And still, it is not enough. Because at 25, if he has displeased the elders, if his loyalty flickered even once, he may be denied advancement. Denied the land, the voting rights, the status. Years of suffering for nothing. He may become a trembler, a man ostracized, shamed. Better to die than to be remembered as weak. Better to bleed forever than to live without Sparta. So he doubles down, trains harder, eats less, speaks less, feels less. By 30, he is finally allowed to live with his wife, to raise children, to rest. But rest, in Sparta, is never peaceful. He watches his own son taken at 7, watches without a tear, because he remembers, because it is the way, because the cycle cannot break, because Sparta does not raise children, it recycles soldiers. The sun sets slowly over the mountains of Laconia, casting long crimson shadows across the marble colonnades and the hardened training grounds of Sparta. But this is no moment of peace. Here, dusk signals not the end of labor, but the beginning of another kind of war. One fought in the minds of its young. You see, by the time a Spartan boy reaches the age of 7, he is no longer a child. He is a recruit, a tool, a blade being tempered for one purpose: obedience through pain and honor through death. Tonight, we dive deeper. Let us return to the agoge, the infamous institution where Spartan boys were forged into living weapons. You already know about the beatings, the starvation, the cold, but what you likely don't know is that none of it was arbitrary. Pain was the curriculum. Deprivation was the textbook. Imagine yourself, 10 years old, ribs showing from weeks of underfeeding. You're given a single cloak for the entire year. No undergarments, no shoes. The winters are harsh, frost collecting on your lashes as you sleep on reeds gathered by hand. No beds, no comfort, only discipline. And if you shivered, that wasn't seen as weakness. No, it was punishment for not being prepared. You were taught to steal food, but punished if caught. Why? Because cunning was valued, but carelessness was shameful. The point was not the theft. The point was stealth, control, ruthlessness without being seen. The paidonomos, the warden of boys, watched your every move. He was not your teacher. He was your tormentor and your judge. If your friend disrespected the rules, you were expected to beat him, publicly, or risk being seen as disloyal. The goal: to sever the bonds of comfort, to destroy empathy and rebuild it as loyalty to Sparta alone. And the older boys, those closer to graduation, they became your instructors, not by lecture, but by force. They would test you with sudden attacks, surprise inspections, challenges meant to provoke fear or hesitation. If you flinched, they noted it. If you stood firm, they praised it. Not with words, but with lesser punishment. Because praise, in Sparta, was a dangerous thing. It made you complacent. Now picture the night rituals. No songs, no games, no stories of childhood dreams, just silence and the occasional sound of lashes against flesh. There were no lullabies here, only whispers of warriors past. Names like Leonidas, whose death at Thermopylae was not tragic, but legendary. He had died as every Spartan boy was taught to hope with his shield in front or on top of him. It was a dream, not of peace, not of joy, but of the perfect death. If you had survived to your teens, you would be chosen, not by merit, but by admiration. Older men, elite warriors, selected the most promising boys to become their Aramenos, an ancient form of mentorship that blurred the lines between education, protection, and personal obsession. This bond, while celebrated as educational and even spiritual, had undertones that today would cause deep discomfort. But in Sparta, it was seen as vital. The reasoning: a boy who loved and feared his mentor would fight harder, would kill for him, would die for him. At 18, your life took another turn. You joined the Crypteia, the secret police. You were sent out, alone, often unarmed, into the countryside for days, sometimes weeks. The mission: to spy, to stalk, to kill. But not enemies. No, your targets were the helots, the enslaved people of Sparta, outnumbering citizens nearly 7-1. The Crypteia's job was not merely to monitor them. It was to terrorize them. You were to kill at will, without trial, without cause, just enough to remind them who held the blade. And you were taught not to flinch, to find no shame in murder. Because in Sparta, killing wasn't criminal. It was civic duty. A preemptive strike against uprising. A test of your readiness. You think you'd survive that? Let's push further. The adult Spartan warrior lived in a state of permanent preparation. Even in peace, his life was a simulation of war. Meals were communal, bland, and symbolic. Black broth was the staple, made of pig's blood, vinegar, and salt. It tasted like rust and sorrow, and that was precisely the point. Luxury was corruption. Even marriage, when allowed, was a strange affair. A man might see his wife only at night, and even then, in secrecy. Why? Because time spent with family was time stolen from Sparta. The wife was to bear warriors, not comfort them. Romantic love was not celebrated. Duty was. You want to understand Spartan romance? Here it is. A Spartan man, upon marriage, would cut his wife's hair short, dress her like a boy, and sneak into her home in the dead of night. Sparta didn't want lovers. It wanted breeders. And what of the women? Ah yes, Spartan women. Fierce, respected, literate. More free than any other women in Greece. But do not mistake that for modern equality. Their strength was functional, not philosophical. They were trained in athletics, taught to manage estates, expected to produce strong sons. A weak child, any child, could still be abandoned on Mount Taygetus. Infanticide was not just accepted, it was state policy. Still, Sparta was not just cold brutality. It had its beauty, but only in the same way a sword does in its balance. Its purpose, its quiet inevitability. War was not a disruption of peace. It was a natural state. From youth to adulthood, you were never allowed to forget you were born to die. Let's turn now to the battlefield. You stand in the phalanx, a wall of men, shields locked, spears forward. Your heartbeat is not yours anymore. It's synchronized with your brother's. A single misstep, and the wall breaks. And if you break the wall, you don't come home. Not because the enemy kills you, because your own people will. To lose your shield was the greatest shame, not because of cowardice, but because it endangered others. A Spartan mother's words to her son before battle: return with your shield, or on it. This wasn't metaphor. It was expectation. If your unit returned victorious, there was no celebration. Not in the way you might imagine. There were no wild feasts, no drunken songs. There was silence, reflection, and training resumed the next day, for war never ends. Peace is merely waiting for the next campaign, and if you were injured, maimed, mentally broken, you were hidden, pushed to the margins. Sparta had no use for damaged tools. You wouldn't be cared for. You'd be discarded, and if you ever showed fear, ever cracked under the weight of duty, your name would be cursed. There were no monuments for the weak. So now, ask yourself again, could you last a day? A single sunrise to sunset under the cold discipline of Sparta? Could you survive the agoge, the crypteia, the endless expectation of death in service of a dream that no longer questioned its own purpose? Would you stand shoulder to shoulder with men who would die for you, but never hug you? Would you eat blood stew, sleep in frost, beat your friends for the sake of honor, and kill in silence because you were told it was duty? Could you surrender everything, for a nation that promised only two things: glory in battle or anonymity in disgrace? The truth is simple. You wouldn't last a day, and in the eyes of ancient Sparta, that's exactly how it should be. Why you wouldn't last a day in ancient Sparta, Part 4a, the cost of glory. They say the price of greatness is sacrifice. But in Sparta, the price was everything. Everything you owned, everything you loved, everything you were. and by the time you realized what you'd lost, there was nothing left of you but a name whispered in the wind, or a corpse buried in the black soil of forgotten battlefields. Tonight, you walk deeper into the abyss of Spartan life, not as a warrior in shining armor, but as a man unraveling. The glories are fading, the myths cracking under the weight of harsh reality, and what's left behind is something far more terrifying than war, something colder than death. It is Spartan silence. You thought the agoge ended at 20. You thought that once you survived the whippings, the hunger, the beatings, the fights, and the humiliation, you'd be free. No. In Sparta, you are never free. At 20, you become a full-time soldier. You're allowed to marry now, yes, but don't think that means love or home or warmth. You must continue to live in the barracks, sleep in the cold shadow of steel, eat at the communal mess. Your wife is a stranger glimpsed through the cracks of duty. You sneak out at night to be with her, not out of romance, but as a necessity, to produce strong children. Marriage was not a celebration. It was a military assignment, and if you're caught sneaking away to see your wife before 30, you're flogged. Because in Sparta, even love is punished. In most places, death is the worst outcome. In Sparta, death was currency. A Spartan man who died in battle was honored, remembered, spoken of. His name was carved in stone. His mother did not weep, she smiled, because her son had fulfilled his duty. But if you died of illness, if you died accidentally, or from cowardice, your name would not be carved into anything. You would disappear from memory like smoke in the wind. Even your body would be discarded without glory. You would be a disgrace, an unnameable shame. Women, too, had only one honorable path to death, childbirth. If a Spartan woman died while giving birth, she was buried with the same honors as a warrior. Because to give life to a Spartan was equal to giving your life for Sparta. Glory wasn't optional. It was demanded. For every Spartan warrior, there were 7 helots. They tilled your fields, served your meals, dressed your wounds. They were the foundation of Spartan society, and they lived in terror. You could kill a helot at any time, for any reason, and every year, the Cryptia, the secret Spartan police, would declare war on the helots, just to make murder legal. Teenage boys were sent into the countryside alone, armed with daggers, with a single mission: kill as many helots as possible. No reason, no mercy, no names. It was training for stealth, for cruelty, for dehumanization, and for you, it would be trauma, but not for Sparta. In Sparta, it was necessary, it was policy. The entire system rested on fear, and the blood of the helots soaked the earth, like rain that never ended. You wouldn't last a day. You don't own yourself. Imagine living in a society where you own nothing. Not your land, not your clothes, not your children. In Sparta, you yourself are property. The polis owns you. The city decides where you live, what you eat, who you marry when you die. Your children, they belong to the state. If your son is weak, he's left to die. If he's strong, he's taken to the agoge. You don't raise your sons, Sparta does. Your daughter, she'll be trained too. Not with swords, but with strength. She'll run, wrestle, and throw javelins. She's not yours. She's Sparta's womb. Her body is for breeding warriors. Even your name can be taken. Fall short of Spartan ideals, and your name is stripped away like rusted armor. You become a trembler, a coward. No one will speak to you. No one will feed you. No one will bury you. You'll starve in silence. You'll vanish like a ghost. And just when you think you've survived all that Sparta could throw at you, there's the festival of Artemis Orthia. It was a sacred rite, boys stripped bare, covered in oil, forced to steal cheese from an altar, while older boys whipped them mercilessly with lashes tipped in metal. The goal wasn't to win. It wasn't even to survive. It was to endure without crying out. If you screamed, you were weak. If you bled, you were honored. And if you died, well, then you became a Spartan legend. Because in Sparta, pain was worship, and survival was not guaranteed. And now let us speak of the Spartan woman, so often misunderstood. No, she did not fight on the front lines, but she carried a heavier sword. She raised warriors in silence. She endured births without help. She buried sons with dry eyes. And she lived without softness, without leisure, without escape. A Spartan woman was expected to speak boldly, to command slaves, to manage land, because the men were always at war, but that didn't mean she was free. It meant she was under permanent pressure. If she wept too long, she was weak. If she bore no sons, she was shamed. If she showed fear, she was punished. She was expected to be iron-dressed in flesh. And when her husband died, there were no tears. There was only the haunting question, did he die well? And finally, imagine you survive it all. You become a respected warrior. You stand tall. Your muscles are steel. Your eyes are cold. You've bled. And you've won. But there is no celebration. There is no feast. There is only silence. Because in Sparta, victory is not a moment. It is a duty. You return to the mess hall. You eat the same black broth. You speak few words. You stare into the fire, and you wonder if tomorrow you'll be called to die for a cause you never chose. You have no legacy. Because Sparta is your legacy. You are a name in a list, a body in formation, and one day a gravestone with no tears. So why wouldn't you last a day? Because you are human. And Sparta didn't want humans. It wanted weapons. It carved boys into blades, molded girls into shields, bled slaves into the soil, and burned softness from the soul. You wouldn't last because your heart still beats to your own rhythm. Because you still dream of love, of comfort, of peace. And Sparta would crush that, with boots, with laws, with silence. And when they were done, nothing of you would remain but dust in the cold Peloponnesian wind. And still, somewhere, deep beneath the stone and ash, a voice would whisper, "Come back with your shield," or on it,